Hello from Boquete. I am here at Dos Jefes coffee farm and going to be doing a coffee tour. I'm looking forward to it. It's a gorgeous day. The sun is out. The wind has stopped for the most part. And I'm going to get an education about coffee growing. Driving onto the property reminded me of the days when I worked in wine tasting room in the Edna Valley in California. So this coffee farm was started by Dee Harris and Rich Lipner. They purchased the 7-acre farm and hence the name Dos Jefes, two bosses. They brought back to life the farm and all of the coffee plants. They have now 7 different varieties of Arabica coffee, and the grounds were just absolutely stunning. I definitely encourage you to support the agro-tourism that's happening in Boquete and anywhere else in Panama that you might find it. It is really gratifying to know when you're buying something from a small producer that the money is going into the hands of people who do such hard work. Farming is not an easy job, but you know, if I had to be a farmer, I think this setting would be pretty idyllic. You've got spring climate almost year-round except for that rainy season, pretty flowers, happy animals, and happy people.
All right, everybody, my name is Amy. I'll be your tour guide for today. Coffee, high quality, but coffee is a global commodity, just like petroleum, which means there's a price in the market, goes up and down all the time. And back in 1997, when the U.S. left the International Coffee Organization, it gave the opportunity for Vietnam, second largest producer of coffee in the world, to flood the U.S. market with the coffee. And this farm was abandoned for 5 years until 2003. Some of you met Richard downstairs. Richard and his wife Dee, they're originally from the U.S., from California. They came to Boquete just looking for a beautiful place to build their house and retire. But they showed them this abandoned farm on the last day. They fell in love with it. They bought it the next day. This was an impulse buy on a coffee farm, essentially. Richard down there is the one that got kind of bored being retired. His wife told him, if you're bored, you have an entire coffee farm now. Maybe do something with that. He didn't know anything about farming or coffee, but thought it'd be exciting to bring it back to life. We produce our own brand now, which is interesting for the tours because you're going to see every step of the process on a small farm. We are not the reality of the coffee industry today, though. Today, farmers are still struggling with unstable market prices. We're all struggling with climate change, and small farms can't produce their own brands of coffee. So we'll talk a bit about this on the tour so you can have a more realistic view to the coffee industry today. We're also going to go for a walk around the farm where you're going to see the plants, the processing. We're going to visit the roasting room. Once we're done with that, we come back up here for what I think is the best part of the tour, the coffee tasting. You can mix 2 days worth of picking in one bed, but you can't mix 3 days worth because then the stages of drying are too different.
And you said how long they should? 20 days?
Minimum 20. If I had 20 days like this, 20 days. That has never happened in this country before. And so, let alone out here in Boquete where our summer is like the misty rain all the time. And so it's impossible. This is the end of our harvesting season right now. So you will still see a few cherries. Our cleanup is next week and we'll be done with all the cherries here. And Panama's dry season officially starts in December, then it finishes around March. So typically it's around a 4-month harvest that only happens once a year. Colombia has 2 dry seasons. They have a large and a small harvest during the year. In the rainy season, the cherries are small, they're green, they're developing, but we want to pick them at this nice dark red color. Yeah, that we're tasting things like blueberry or mango or hazelnut. So higher altitude Arabicas are the ones that have those potential for better taste. And if we're just producing commercial coffee, there's a price in the market. The quality is not important, it's the quantity. That's why a lot of farms pay pickers very little money, and they strip pick the trees, take whatever cherries there. So if we want to begin producing a high quality coffee, it begins with our pickers, with paying them more money to pick one by one, just the ones that are dark red for today, which also means going through the same trees over and over again for 4 months of individually picking each one of these cherries. It's a ton of manual work to produce coffee.
Everything you've talked about, how much manual labor there is, what would be really a fair trade cost for a cup of coffee?
Ooh, that is a very good question. Because it's not so much what the consumer pays, it's how much reaches the farm. Because let's say you go to Starbucks and you're going to pay $7 for a cup of coffee, right? So you're paying a lot of money, but almost nothing is reaching the farms. However, you go to a direct trade shop and you'll pay $3 for a cappuccino, let's say, where out of that a lot more is actually reaching the farm. So it's not so much about finding an expensive cup of coffee, just knowing that they're buying it from the farm will make a big difference as far as the middlemen, because that's the problem, where you can pay a lot as a consumer, but not a lot reaches the farm. It's about how many middlemen go from your cup down to the farm. And that's where direct trade's aim is, cutting out the middlemen. So that's the option. I don't know the price though. Like a little deep pulping machine, and they collect rainwater to try to wash the coffee as soon as they pick it, to use the water as a fertilizer for their plants. They don't have money for any sorts of chemicals, and they need the coffee to weigh it. Once it's ready to sell, that's another hour hiking it down the road to sell it to somebody with a pickup truck. He pays them barely enough money to cover the... So it's not like we can just open the cherries and roast the coffee. We have to remove the layers. They're also very wet. They're at around 60% moisture, and they need to be at 11% for the roasting process. You can choose to remove the layers first and then dry it, or you can dry it first and then remove the layers. But the process will affect the taste of the coffee. Remember that with commercial coffee, the taste is not very important. It's what's the fastest, cheapest, most consistent way to get paid the market price. The fastest way to do it is called washing the coffee. You use machines to remove the skin, and you use tons of water and high pressure to wash the slimy layer off. That way it can dry faster, either under the sun, indoors, or even using machines nowadays too. Yeah. In Boquete, we have 3 big companies that are washing coffee. The main source of water is the one river that runs through the middle of town, so that's the water that they use. But because they don't have any farms to fertilize, all the wastewater goes right back into the river. And all the fruit builds up algae. Algae is a plant that takes the oxygen out of the water, kills the fishes, ferments producing methane gas, which is a climate changer too. We haven't had fishes in Caldera for more than 12 years because of all the coffee washing that happens here. So it's a fast and convenient way to process. It could have an environmental impact if you dump it back into the water. But you can reuse it, and countries like, well, the only country, Costa Rica, made it illegal for farmers to do that. The government in Costa Rica even provides filtration units to filter these nutrients. Then you can return clean water, and then you can sell the nutrients for fertilizer. So fertilizer would be one of the biggest uses for the skin in this case too. Now, we chose not to wash coffee here. It doesn't mean all the washed coffees are bad. The problem for us as consumers is that the bigger the brand of coffee, the less information about anything that happened on the farm or the producing side. That's why we're going to talk a lot about specialty coffee, and we're going to compare it to wine. Because on a good bottle of wine, it has to have the information of where it comes from. It's connected to the quality. Now that we have better quality coffees, we're getting the traceability to the farms as well. Coffee in one day, unless we were exporting everything. We have a little roasting machine next door. It takes us to sell our coffee to little coffee shops, restaurants, hotels all over Panama. It's like a year and a half to finish selling 4,000 kilos. Whatever we're not currently using is still in the cherry because all those layers will protect the seed further from the environmental damage, the humidity. You can see our dehumidifier here. The The way they're packaged is really important. This is the moisture meter for the coffee. Ideally, we're roasting it at 11%. Most of the bags are below 11 because they will get to 11 while they're resting. It's Panama, so they'll always come up a bit. But we can measure the moisture. We can take the cherries from the beds. We can feel them first to know if we think that they're there. And we use the pilon back there behind you, the giant mortar pestle, to smash them open, get some seeds, put them in here, and actually get the percentage of moisture. It's full of carbon dioxide gas. It needs to degas. At least 24 hours we can leave it degassing. Then it can go into these barrels or packaged into the regular bags. Most of the commercial brands are very bitter because they need it to taste the same every single time. Treat coffee like a good wine and select coffee not from one country, coffee from one region, coffee from one processing method. That's when you can roast it at a lower temperature. You can drink a black cup of coffee and it kind of tastes like blueberries or mango or hazelnut. So really cool differences between commercial and specialty coffees. The brewing of the coffee, like I said, is only the extraction that happens when the water touches the coffee. So if you make a shot of espresso, the water and the coffee are only going to touch for 30 seconds. So you need a much finer grind so you can get that much flavor out that quickly. But if you're using like a French press and you add coffee and you add water and they're steeping together for 4 minutes extracting flavor, if the grind is really fine, you're going to over extract like a really bitter taste to the coffee. So you need a coarser grind if it's going to steep in water longer. This is a filtered coffee. The water's flowing through. We're using a medium grind. If I use a coarse grind, the water would go through super fast without enough time to extract. We would have an under-extracted coffee. Remember I mentioned the carbon dioxide gas from fresh roast? This was not roasted today, but it was roasted within this week. So I'm only adding enough water to cover the grounds, and they should begin to bubble and rise because they're fresh roasted. If you can't see, you can stand up to take a look. You're probably going to see the dark roast from where you're sitting. The dark roast roasted the longest, so it actually develops the most gas. You can still see the medium bubbling over here. The light didn't roast for too long, so it doesn't develop the amount of gas that you see in the dark roast, for example. You can see that kind of rising, the bubble coming up right here. Your first sip of a dark roast, for example, can be really bitter when it's really hot. And that's about the time we add milk and sugar. But if we just let them cool down, they can have the properties off of it. That's the medium. That's the dark.
I just did the coffee tour at Dos Jefes and I highly, highly recommend it. I honestly think that I've been converted to be a coffee drinker. You know how much I love my tea, but just learning about the coffee and the fair trade and, you know, the single origin, and tasting the fruit in the coffee, I might be a convert. I might actually be. This really has been educational. My tour guide was Amy, and I don't know how much coffee she had before the tour, but she just gave us so much information, answered everyone's questions, and was a delight to go with through the property. And it's a beautiful property and it's not far out of town at all. And then you can purchase the local coffee, and I got a couple of the coffee sacks because in my casita I have to cover the electrical outlet, not electrical outlet, the electric box, whatever that thing is. The fuse box. Yeah, I think that's what it is. All right, I am on my way back down the hill. I don't know where the after party is, but I feel like I'm all amped up after having all that coffee. Good night, coffee beans. Rest well. The Parque del Biblioteca in Boquete is quite a gem. It opened in 2021. It's about 8.75 hectares, I believe, and it has over 35 different species of trees. They did a beautiful job creating these ponds for the wildlife. I love seeing benches with quotes or dedications, remembering people who were involved in creating beautiful spaces. And I figured this is a good time to have a bit of peace with all the chaos that's going on in the world. And I know for me, I can tend to get a little too drawn into it with my phone and all the apps nearby. So I hope you enjoy some of the flowers and the birds and the water, although it was so windy, so I didn't have the volume on, but here's some nice background music for you to enjoy. When there is so much chaos in the external world, I tend to retreat to my garden, of course, and I think our pets are getting a lot more attention and love, and that is definitely a way to calm the nervous system and lower our blood pressure, and appreciating beautiful spaces that we have outside, and practicing kindness whenever we can to ourselves and to others. I have to say, I do feel quite safe in Panama, and I know that if I was living back in the States, I would definitely have more anxiety and some fears about retaliation, and just being in the United States always kind of has this certain energy current that is a little bit hyperactive, I think, for me, especially now. I would not want to be in the United States. I am actually considering getting some type of residency for a neighboring country of Panama. I have been watching some videos that talk about having more of those plan Bs and plan Cs, and that is what I'm looking into at the moment. So, what brings you peace and calm and tranquility? Where do you turn to when the outside is chaotic? I hope that you can connect with that space and feel a sense of peace and calm. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch today, and I'll see you next week.